So an issue that a few years ago would have had us accused of being utopians or I don't know what else, is now in the mainstream, in all major newspapers, in the electoral campaigns of all the countries in the world, including the most powerful ones. So the time is ripe for change to happen.
Within this reality, okay, it's a very nice description, or very not nice description, but good description about the whole global situation and the systemic challenges and the main reason behind this inequality, and inequality as a main, let's say, obstacle or challenge that humanity is facing. Let's go back to the Agenda 2030. So you say that it is kind of a progress comparing to what we had in the Millennium Declaration and Millennium Development Goals, and which is more comprehensive, tackling some core issues. What are the faults in the Agenda 2030? What are the main, let's say, critiques as a global actor and member of Social Watch and the Reflection Group, and in this Spotlight report?
Well, Agenda 2030 is still a process which is not finished. So we have the declaration, we have 17 goals, which are very important. We have targets among these goals, but there is still an open discussion as to how will those targets be measured, how will they be monitored, and how will that be reported? Because a declaration, a commitment, a promise is as good as your chances to cash on the check, which is a promise also, I will pay. Now, if they give you a check without a date or without a sum, or you say, well, that is not, it's too vague, I need a figure here, I need a date, I need to make it a promise. Now, we still need to do those steps. Indicators, for example, the declaration says we will reduce inequalities, which is high. And it says more, it says inequalities within countries and among countries. Okay, how are we going to measure it?
They don't say how.
And they don't say how. And this is still being discussed.
To measure or to politically, you mean the plans?
It's two different things.
Because to measure, they are working on the indicators.
Well, of course, there is working on the indicator, but there is still no agreement on the indicators.
But
why? Because it becomes very political.
But also you had some comments on the indicators, the process and
yes,
the indicators.
Exactly, the process and the indicators, because at the moment of defining the indicator, you are defining who is going to be held responsible against what. For example, there is one very important target that says that the quality of social services needs to be improved.
Yes.
Fine. You can bring that to any government of the world and demand an improvement of the quality of the social services. Now, one of the suggested indicators for that is how many women have to walk more than 15 minutes to get water, drinkable water, and so on. Which is an important indicator, and it is awful that in many countries still a big percentage of women have to walk a lot just to get to a well or a fountain to get the water. Fine. But in a lot of countries of the world, the government will say, okay, done, our women can open, therefore we are good with social services.
So they can be misleading indicators.
So some indicators can be, in a sense, misleading, or can be only focusing in a kind of inertia from the old development paradigm on the poorest of the poor. So yes, maybe it is a priority that no women in the world should have that, and water should be accessible for all, which is another target, yes. But that doesn't mean that social services of education, health services, public transport, and many others shouldn't improve, and you should find measures for them in all other countries. And that is not contradictory.
So there is a challenge in defining the indicators to measure the progress.
It is a challenge in defining the indicators. And you were also saying, oh yes, but the policies are not explicit.
Okay.
And it's good because we wouldn't want a few diplomats or UN or World Bank bureaucrats and so on to define our policies. The policies is for every country to discuss.
But this is what is planned in basically in the Agenda 2030. The implementation is left to the nationals to plan how to implement.
Exactly, and
But-
that is
And
fine.
moreover, they created kind of a monitoring mechanism, which is the high-level political forum, to monitor the implementation at the national level.
Yes, and the governments are invited, they are not forced, but they are invited to go to the United Nations
Voluntarily.
and report voluntarily on what they have done and how they have done it and so on. So governments can compare, okay, they reached this goal by doing this, I had a different policy, am I doing better, am I doing worse? If my policy is not working, I can change it and take your policy that seems to be better. That's why it's important that ministers come together and talk and so on. But what collectively the governments need to do at a global level is to eliminate the obstacles that are beyond control of a single country, that do not allow to implement the good
So
policies.
back to the systemic issues.
And that is back to the systemic issues. So it is,
And they are not addressed properly in the Agenda 2030.
a path has been opened saying the high-level political forum, where the ministers are meeting every year, and the presidents every 4 years are going to have a new summit, needs to review and identify what are the obstacles and take actions on them. And one very clear obstacle is climate change. It's extremely important because it's creating havoc around the world and because of the cost and effort that is required. And in a way, a first step was done after the signing of the declaration in Paris last year with the Paris Agreement and so on. It's really a first step. It's clearly not enough, but it goes in the right direction.
We
So,
have to see what will happen.
we have to see
Marrakesh.
what will happen in Marrakesh and in terms of implementing and so on, and we have to see, is the trade system being changed so that it actually favors the countries that need it? Is international finances being changed so that the money from the poor countries doesn't go to the rich countries? I mean, it's,
But things don't seem to be changing a lot according to the needs. When it comes to the trading system, we witnessed lately the trade negotiations within WTO and the bilateral agreements. So we are in the same, let's say, way of thinking of the global trade. Things when it comes to the global finance is not changing a lot.
well, but you have the thinking of the governments based on their own experience is changing.
You mean the developing countries?
The developing countries in particular, but other countries too. So you have now, for example, Tanzania and Nigeria have refused to sign trade deals, free trade deals, which are trade and investment deals actually, with the European Union.
Which is good.
And have said no.
And India is changing all the framework.
India is changing the framework. South Africa is revising the different investment treaties that it has signed, that it signed after
So you
apartheid,
feel
not
that
before.
things are changing slowly, but something is happening.
And actually, when you look at the Brexit vote in Britain, it is essentially a protest vote against this form of globalization that is creating all these problems quite clearly. You can do many interpretations of that vote, yes, but it's, my preferred interpretation is that, of really people don't think it's correct to just go in the same way of what we have been doing over the last 20 years. So things need to change, and there are a lot of symptoms that they will be changed.